This is Season 3. This is Season 3 on drugs. Any questions? Alright, that's probably an unfair simplification. The Simpsons Season 4 is not just Season 3 on drugs. Really, it's Lisa who's on drugs, not the whole thing itself. But this is one of those where it's less about radically bringing a lot of brand new ideas and elements to The Simpsons, it's more about the focus and intensity of those elements. They're taking the show to new extremes. For example, Season 4 is considerably more dense with flashbacks, dream sequences, and fantasies in general. These have always been sprinkled throughout the earlier seasons, to be sure. Here's where the show started to be more punchy with them. They were less afraid about interrupting scenes to insert a joke. They are more apt to cut away somewhere else and then come back later. You compare the openings of Season 3's Lisa's Pony and Season 4's Brother from the Same Planet, and the difference is clear. They both start with split situations, with the kids waiting for Homer. Lisa's Pony just bounces back and forth between locations, interrupting once for a Marge thought bubble. Whereas in the Season 4 example, in between all the back and forth, they jump to Lady Homer driving a car, a flying nun joke, Milhouse doing a Shining parody, a Bart Star reference, then a Homer dream sequence, finishing with a Bart fantasy. These two opening scenes aren't one-to-one the same with the exact point they're making, but it's a decent enough example of how the tendencies started shifting. Season 4 is considerably more bouncy with its scene construction. It has a lot of fun setting up a concept and then wondering, where else in Springfield is this happening? Who else is getting the Osaka flu? Who else is excited about Gabbo? The plots are a little more streamlined. The show is more content to just riff on a concept until they run out of material. You're not going to get a lot of Act 3 plot shifts, like Bart gets hit by a car. They have too many jokes for something like that. Despite this sort of bounciness, Season 4's cutaways rarely feel like manatee jokes. When they cut away, it almost always feels thematically relevant to what is going on in the plot. They're not just random, indulgent concepts thrown together for a laugh. Where they tend to get more indulgent is with their references. Season 4 is much more dense with its pop culture shoutouts. Some of these are among the most memorable moments of the season. A Streetcar Named Marge is practically a meta-episode, with just how many pastiches and references they jam in there. We'll never forget the Music Man parody in Marge vs. the Monorail, all the Disney and amusement park stuff in Selma's Choice. As big concepts, Season 4 absolutely nails the spirit and essence of its source material. Where things get weird is with some of their random one-offs and cutaways. Odd references to Tony Plow from Leave It to Beaver, or spoiling the end of The Crying Game, just straight up doing a Where's Waldo, or showing a Ren and Snippy clip for whatever reason. I mean, I am never ever going to complain about getting some Mason Williams, but there really isn't a reason why we need classical gas right here. They get away with it because, frankly, it's Last Exit to Springfield and it can do whatever it wants. Season 4 is just a bit indulgent sometimes. The writers really wanted to do an Oliver Stone joke, so they jammed it into an episode. I don't want to overstate this as being an overarching problem or anything. I honestly don't mind them that much. You just start noticing references for the sake of references. I think the pop culture stuff contributes to The Simpsons having a much stronger Hollywood feel during this era. This is a season that feels very connected to the entertainment industry as a whole. It tends to creep into the episodes. Part of this is just the plot selections. We get both Itchy and Scratchy the movie and The Front during Season 4, two deep dives into the world of animation. Krusty the Clown hosts an entire anniversary special in I Love Lisa, and then closes out the season with Krusty Gets Cancelled. The big celebrity episodes in Season 3 were Stark Raving Dad, which was more of an offbeat take on the concept, and then Homer at the Bat, which starred a bunch of athletes instead of Hollywood industry types. Yeah, Aerosmith and Sting hung out with the characters, but they tended to be the outlier. It's not like in Colonel Homer they got a celebrity to host Yahoo! Season 4 was like, let's get Brooke Shields to present an award. Let's bring Leonard Nimoy, Adam West, and Linda Ronstadt to Springfield. Dr. Joyce Brothers? Sure, it's Last Exit to Springfield. We can do whatever we want. Now, to be fair, it's not like the show turned into The Critic or anything during this era. Balancing out their strong reference game and celebrities, Season 4 does feature a ton of down-to-earth elements. Money problems continue to drag down the Simpson family, arguably even more than in Season 3. They have to pay for foundation repair, a new car, Homer's triple bypass, Lisa's giant phone bill, Lisa needs braces. Even in their flashback episode, they have to hit up Grandpa to buy a house. We don't see stuff like Homer having to work a second job, but this is still definitely an era that presented The Simpsons as not having disposable income. Religion is another pretty consistent theme in Season 4. It's partially due to the presence of Homer the Heretic, which discusses the topic in full detail. In other episodes, you'll get the characters praying, visiting Reverend Lovejoy, reciting Bible verses, stuff like that. God himself even shows up outside of a dream sequence to end Homer and Barney's plow service. They're definitely becoming a bit more direct about fantastical elements affecting the world of Springfield. In general, the jokes are a bit more surreal, absurd, and cartoony in Season 4. That flexible reality starts getting stretched a bit more. Jokes like these start showing up more frequently. Or you could point to the entirety of Marge vs. the Monorail as an example of this shift in humor. Honestly, I really like how Season 4 handles these wackier elements in its jokes. The earlier seasons were a bit tentative sometimes, a bit afraid that they're gonna break the show. Season 4 has a strong sense of what are throwaway jokes that don't break reality, and what is plot important stuff that does matter. They throw in a little bit of magic, a little bit of illogical nonsense, but they don't make any of these stories hinge on these elements. One trend that I noticed during this rewatch is that Season 4 is really fond of jokes about gender roles, homosexuality, and/or characters dressing in drag. At the end of the season, we get 3 episodes in a row that feature a fantasy of Bart or Grandpa in drag. We get stuff like Bart comfortably walking in heels, Homer wearing a wedding dress, Smithers' fantasy of Mr. Burns coming through his window, Homer thinking his boss is coming on to him, Bart implying he would go all the way with Ralph or something. During Homer's triple bypass, Barney states his support for Homer transitioning to become a woman. Barney is kind of confused about what's going on right here, but it's the thought that counts, I suppose. I joke that Season 3 needed to get laid because of how much it consistently lusted after the ladies. Well, Season 4 really swung in the opposite direction hard. It's a veritable sausage fest in comparison. Every chance it gets, it shows off Homer in his tighty-whities, or various other characters in Speedos or whatever. This obviously isn't really intended to be fan service. They only really go for the characters people wouldn't typically want to see. Oh, Chief Wiggum, no. Put that away. We do, however, get a great deal of shirtless Flanders, as well as Willie wrestling a wolf. So yeah, you don't just have to settle for Lenny this year. Speaking of which, let's go through our secondary character stock watch, find out who is the biggest risers and fallers for the year. Season 4 introduced a few new regulars to the series. Bumblebee Man, Captain McAllister, Jub Jub, Ruth Powers, Superintendent Chalmers, and fan favorite Mr. Johansson. Of these, the Sea Captain was initially the breakout character, appearing in 5 different episodes during the year. They liked this guy immediately. The 2 biggest gainers this season were, in my opinion, Apu and Groundskeeper Willie. Apu had gotten some spotlight in Lisa's Pony in Season 3, but he tended to show up more consistently during this year. The bounciness of the jokes made it more likely to kick it over to the Quickie Mart. He is, however, a total asshole in Margin Chains. Hate him in that one. With Groundskeeper Willie, the writers loved pairing him up with Principal Skinner. Like every chance they got, they had those 2 bickering back and forth with each other. Skinner wasn't involved in as many episodes during this year, but if it makes way for more Willie, I think it's a good trade-off. Ralph develops into the Ralph we all know. We also learn that he's Chief Wiggum's son, something that influenced a lot of later storylines. We don't see Ralph's acting chops after this season, though. I would say Krusty is the most prolific secondary character of Season 4, taking the crown away from Mr. Burns. He gets his own spotlight episode, plays major roles in 2 other ones, and contributes to several others in meaningful ways. I mean, it makes sense. If Season 4 is a very Hollywood season, Krusty is going to have a lot of stuff to do. Kent Brockman can be included in this conversation too. He becomes an important figure in describing the latest developments happening in the town, or in the entertainment industry. They're becoming more fond of showing how incompetent and mistake-prone his production is. We have to give special mention to Phil Hartman this year, who not only brought Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure goodness, but also starred as Lyle Landley and Bart's big brother Tom. I didn't do the math, but this might be the most Phil Hartman heavy season ever. Season 4 didn't feature Springfield Elementary as heavily, so characters like Mrs. Krabappel, Milhouse, Nelson, and Martin fell into the background a bit. I guess that's what happens when you go on summer break in one episode, expel Bart in another, and then do a Lisa Ralph story. Sorry guys, better days are ahead. If I had to give an award for the best characterization of the year, I think I'd give it to Barney, with Ned Flanders a close second. I'd never been the biggest fan of Barney in the first 3 seasons. His pathetic drunk shtick gets kinda repetitive. But he absolutely kills in Season 4. Like, every appearance is great. They did an excellent job of putting this guy in a lot of different situations and locations. This is man-about-town Barney, which is the best kind of Barney. I feel like he works best when in contrast to the sober world around him. Getting him out there more was a good idea. With Flanders, I feel like they hit the perfect balance between him being sorta churchy, but still existing in our real world. Later seasons would never have Flanders singing a Rod Stewart parody, dressing up like a zombie, or playing a character like Stanley. Also, Ann Landers is a boring old biddy. Much like with Barney, they hit the contrast just right. The pop culture references give Flanders something to play off of, while still living in his very religious mindset. I like the version of Flanders who will happily show Marge how to make the old face shredder. Speaking of which, Marge made a bit of a comeback in Season 4. I had expressed that she got kinda stuck in the house the previous year, just sort of voicing her concerns or getting on Homer's case. She certainly does a lot of that during this year too. Although sometimes, it's pretty clear Marge is very much attracted to these schemes. However, Season 4 put way more emphasis on getting Marge out into the world. All 4 of her Spotlight episodes have her experiencing something new, something away from Evergreen Terrace. Marge needs a good outward-facing, extroverted plot, and Season 4 gave her a lot of material to work with. Lisa is written considerably less bookishly this time. Gone are her books and magazines she's constantly reading. Her braininess is more focused into Homer's triple bypass and her science project in Duffless. We get a bit of her activism too, with her crusade against big tobacco. Season 4 preferred to challenge Lisa with more childish and personal concerns. Yes, she goes on that big tobacco crusade, but remember, the episode kicks off with Lisa having self-esteem issues with her image. We see similar themes when Lisa needs braces. In other episodes, she's dealing with an unwelcome crush or an addiction to the Corey hotline. She's practically a drug addict in this one. Then again, Lisa spends a decent amount of Season 4 on drugs, so maybe this is par for the course. Bart became a more Homer-centric character in Season 4. Previous years had him pranking Springfield as a whole, whereas here, he is more interested in constantly trolling Homer and making his life miserable. Look at how much Homer's life improved when he went away to camp, how toddler Bart torments him at every moment, how his prank ends up hospitalizing his father. Episodes like Itchy and Scratchy the Movie and Brother from the Same Planet looked at how Bart manipulates him and how dysfunctional their relationship can be. He does get a couple great pranks on Skinner, even getting expelled for one of them, but by and large, Bart's stories tended to revolve around his father during this era. Honestly, you could say that about the entirety of Season 4. In a lot of respects, this feels like the year where the POV shift is complete, where Homer truly becomes the main character of the show. Previous seasons, you could argue it was Bart, or maybe it was Homer and Bart as co-leads. There aren't as many kid episodes in Season 4, where the entire focus is on the kid's point of view. With the exception of I Love Lisa, all of Bart and Lisa's highlight episodes are balanced out by a Homer and Marge B-plot. Season 4 plots have a tendency to get Homer more intimately involved, either comment on him as a character, or tell it from his point of view. Homer reached a new level of stupidity during Season 4, as expected. At this point, it's slightly less about him making monumental blunders that ruin lives, it's more about the day-to-day moments of unbelievable stupidity. This is a version of Homer who cannot complete a maze on a kid's menu. A Homer who obsessively eats that old sandwich. It's safe to say he definitely becomes more of a food monster too. We've gone from him dreaming of the land of chocolate, to getting into a lawsuit over an all-you-can-eat buffet. Honestly, considering he ends up in the hospital on 2 separate occasions and quits alcohol in another, it's clear that Season 4 features a lot of Homer's vices. If they lived in the world of 7, Homer would be murdered in pretty much every episode. We do get a teensy bit of that jerk-ass Homer in there, although it's entirely directed at secondary characters and randos. Some of these, like him yelling at Surly Joe, is mostly for ironic character contrast. I think they're still hitting a good balance of putting in a little bit of aggressiveness into Homer, but not letting things get out of hand. They write Homer a bit looser during this time, and they end up pulling a lot more comedy out of his character. Before we leave the Simpson family, I should give special mention to Maggie, who always gets ignored in these videos. Seriously though, Season 4 is a great Maggie season. She gets her own B-plot as she strikes back against objectivism, drives a car, and finally says her first word. Thanks, Liz. Overall, Season 4 is often remembered for the density of its jokes. Just how many classic moments that come from this era. This reputation is very well earned. It's kind of mind-boggling how much good stuff is in here. But it manages to make these hilarious episodes while still making its stories feel meaningful, give the audience something to feel good about. This was an era that would let Tom and Peppy get together in the end. They resisted the more meta and unexpected ending. You get the sense that they're still aware of the sitcom framework, would rather work within it. They don't want to destroy the sitcom, they just want to inject it with steroids. That's the Season 4 way. Now you could knock Season 4 for not having a ton of those big emotional moments, or the kind of deep character studies that you could write an essay about. With a couple exceptions, I don't really watch this season for the feels. You could say the characters are more shallow in general. But honestly, it works for them. It's the kind of season that understands that we've hit certain character dynamics so many times already that we don't need to insert drama for the sake of drama. It would rather make a very funny episode with a very satisfying ending. Season 4 is cool. That's probably the best word for it. Not edgy, not schmaltzy, it just wants the audience to feel good and relax. Maybe Season 4 really is on drugs. Let me know in the comments what you think of that Season 4 flavor, and your favorite moments from it. What is it that separates it from Seasons 3 and 5? I'll be back with my top 10 later, as I figure out how to rank this murderer's row of episodes. Man, there's a lot of good stuff in here. As always, thanks for watching.